Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to another episode of News Dose. We give you all of the latest news in the game industry, and Xbox has now confirmed some specs for the Xbox Series X. And I know we have talked about the targeted specs on this channel several times in the past, and based off those, we were led to believe the power tower, the Xbox Series X, would be an absolute beast. Well, today that is now confirmed. The Xbox Series X is insanely powerful, and not only did we hear about these specs, but Xbox also talked about a brand new game-changing feature that's incredibly exciting heading into next generation. So we're going to talk about those in detail and what this means for Sony. We can't forget that there has been a lack of details on the PlayStation 5, and could this be the reason as to why? Also, we do have other things to talk about as well, including Nintendo discreetly changing the fine details on an Animal Crossing feature, Xenoblade Definitive Edition may be coming sooner than we all think, and Activision is not playing around with these leakers, so stay tuned for all of that. But I know you're probably excited about this Xbox Series X announcement today, and what's up with the ultra powerful specs, so I'm not going to make you wait any longer. So yes, Xbox dropped a major announcement today confirming some specs for the Xbox Series X, and that it will indeed have 12 teraflops of GPU power, which is incredible. It has variable rate shading, which will essentially increase the frame rate as well as the pixel ratio, and in fact, Xbox Series X will be capable of running up to 120 frames per second. That does not mean games will run at 120 frames, but rather it's capable of it, so keep that in mind. The targeted frame rate will still be 60 frames per second, but you may get a few games that are less graphically demanding being able to achieve this, or even some backwards compatible games may be able to do this. I don't know to the extent, but you might see a few here and there. This is mainly done through HDMI 2.1, which is now confirmed, which of course allows 120 Hz. And yes, Xbox Series X is confirmed to be backwards compatible with the original Xbox, Xbox 360, and the Xbox One, all loaded up by their solid-state drive. The new solid-state drive will not only be important for next-generation games, but it will also load up backwards compatible games faster, and yes, backwards compatible games will also visually look better with steadier frame rate and improved resolution. Now that is actually really cool. I mean, we knew that they were going to get backwards compatibility, or at least, it was kind of implied, but now it's confirmed, and it will be Xbox Series X enhanced, which is just insane. Their backwards compatibility team is just phenomenal. The Xbox Series X has also been confirmed to have hardware accelerated ray tracing and will be using AMD's latest Zen 2 processor based on RDNA 2.0 architecture, which is why the frame rate will be targeting 60 frames per second this time around. Seriously, the processor is probably what I'm excited about the most, because we will see a significant jump in performance, whereas this generation the processors were just a bottleneck. In fact, the PC space does not even have RDNA 2.0 architecture processors as of this moment. That's probably going to change soon, but this is really cool to see Xbox implement this type of processor. That is insane. This thing is going to be incredibly fast. No doubt in my mind, we are going to see a lot more games reach that 60 frames per second target that we have been hoping for so long. And like I said, all of this just sounds insane, and there is one more feature we're going to talk about here in just a moment, but we've talked about these specs several times on this channel. We have known for a few months now that Xbox was targeting 12 teraflops and that they wanted 4K 60 frames per second. A lot of people were very skeptical of this and didn't think it was possible, but it's now absolutely confirmed. Xbox Series X is going to be a beast, and I find it very interesting in how Xbox announced these specs. They just out of nowhere on a random Monday announced these specs through an article. They didn't come out and reveal it through a big presentation, but rather just confirmed that the Xbox Series X is as powerful as we were originally led to believe. And I think there is a big strategy behind this announcement. I think Xbox is saying, hey, Sony is being silent, but we're confident in what we have, so your move, Sony. We as fans have been hearing a lot about Sony and their very silent strategy recently, and how they are waiting to see what the price of the Xbox Series X is before making an announcement themselves. As we now know, Sony has been struggling with the price of the PlayStation 5 as the parts are now $450. Keep in mind that is not retail price and does not include packaging materials and how much of a cut the retailer will receive. This leads me to believe that Sony did not want to be over the $400 price point, and now they question on whether or not they should sell the PlayStation 5 for a loss or for a profit and sell it at $500. The PlayStation 4, of course, was sold for a profit, but they had the luxury of Xbox making a lot of really dumb mistakes, and they had Kinect, which ultimately put the less powerful Xbox One at $500 compared to the PlayStation 4 sitting at $400. This time around, though, it sounds like Xbox Series X will be more powerful than the PlayStation 5, and by a pretty significant margin as well. Of course, we don't actually know what the PlayStation 5 specs are, but based off what we do know, and the only credible source we have as of this moment is those leaked AMD internal tests, which places the PlayStation 5 in the 9.3 to 9.7 teraflop range. So if this is true, which this still is an if, but if it is, Sony will absolutely need the price advantage, which is why they're waiting to see what the Xbox Series X price is. The question now is, how much will Xbox Series X cost? And this is very important. So far, we've talked a lot about power in this video, but based off of a recent survey done by Ed Boon, the creative director of Mortal Kombat, he asked fans what the most important thing is when it comes to next-generation consoles. And out of 50,000 votes, affordable price was the most important thing, so having that price advantage does matter. So what will Xbox Series X be priced at? I've said this for a long while now, but I would not be shocked if it is over $500 based off these beastly specs, especially since they reportedly have a cheaper next-generation console in development as well by the name of Lockhart. I would be more than willing to buy Xbox Series X myself, but that would also give Sony some leeway on pricing the PlayStation 5, and they could then price the PlayStation 5 at $500, and even though it would be less powerful, that would be okay as they have the price advantage. Sony's worst nightmare, though, would be Microsoft taking a loss on each console sold and sell the Xbox Series X at $500. If that happens, Sony may be forced into a tough predicament. They would then have to choose to sell at a profit and compete with a much more powerful console at the same price point, or to sell at a loss, which obviously is not ideal for Sony being a smaller company than Microsoft, and they do rely on PlayStation much more than Microsoft relies on Xbox. So this would not be good for Sony, though obviously they would still be very successful and nothing is going to change that considering how popular the PlayStation brand is, and we do need to keep that in mind that Sony has not confirmed the PlayStation 5 specs. Who knows, maybe they surprise us and have similar specs to the Xbox Series X. I mean, we can't rule that out yet, but whoa, next generation is really starting to get interesting now. And we do have one major feature to talk about as well, which is an absolute game changer for next generation consoles. Xbox did announce a feature by the name of Smart Delivery, where you only have to buy a game once, and based off the hardware you're using, it will be the best possible version of itself. What this means is that, let's say you buy Halo Infinite. Well, if you're playing on the Xbox Series X, it will automatically look much better than what it would on Xbox One. So essentially this would remove you ever having to buy a remastered game, as every game that supports Smart Delivery will basically be remastered already on better hardware, but it will be available on all consoles. So, basically the Xbox One, Xbox One X, whatever the Lockhart's going to be called, and Xbox Series X. So far, Xbox has announced all of their first-party games will use this feature, and Cyberpunk 2077 has also been confirmed to use Smart Delivery. That's right, Cyberpunk 2077 pretty much has just now been confirmed to be a next-generation title with improvements over Xbox One. Of course, this feature is optional for developers to use, but if a developer decides not to use it, I can't really imagine that will go over well among fans. Also, Insider Matt did say that Sony is going to do their own version of smart delivery, so keep that in mind. This is a win-win for gamers for both consoles. Matt does have a pretty good track record, so I'm hoping that one is true. Now moving on to other news, Nintendo seems to be a little confused. So the Animal Crossing Direct went up last Thursday, and there is one thing in that announcement that caught my eye, and that was how you can back up Animal Crossing New Horizons, which would not allow you to back up your game through the cloud, but rather they have some kind of server backup that can be used in special circumstances. I don't really know what that means, and it doesn't seem like a great solution, or at least how it was worded. It also stated in the fine print that this could only be used once per user, which had some fans worried. I mean, Animal Crossing is a huge time investment, so I'm sure fans don't like the idea of not having that extra security. I mean, I've seen people play these games for years, so if something were to happen and you lost that data, that would be gut-wrenching. Nintendo, though, decided to take the entire Animal Crossing Direct down and reposted the Direct with a new statement saying that more details would be provided soon. This is a little odd, but it could mean that they will be looking for a different solution. I'm still hoping for cloud backup myself, but hey, I'm going to choose to remain positive here. New Horizons looks great, so I'm not going to fret over this too much for the time being. And staying on topic of Nintendo, some Xenoblade Definitive Edition ESRB ratings went up over the weekend, which could possibly mean that Xenoblade is pretty much finished. A lot of the times when games gets rated, that is sometimes followed up with some kind of announcement in the coming weeks, which leads me to wonder, is Xenoblade Definitive Edition closer to release than we all realize? It sure seems like a great game to release earlier in the year rather than waiting to release it during the holidays, so I wouldn't really be shocked if it was coming out soon. Nintendo does have Animal Crossing releasing next month, but after that there is a pretty big gap. Considering Xenoblade is a first-party title though, I do wonder how they would announce a release date. Could it be at a new Nintendo Direct? I don't want to speculate on that though. There is always rumors about a new Nintendo Direct anymore, so I would rather just wait for an unofficial announcement, but I am curious about all of these ratings nonetheless. I mean, this is not the first rating that we've seen, be leaked, or whatever you want to say about Nintendo here recently. I can only hope though that Xenoblade is coming sooner rather than later. In other news, a new PlayStation controller patent has been spotted online that could signify it has biofeedback, which would detect your heart rate as well as sweat levels. That seems kind of strange, but the way the patent explains this is that it would give players an immersive and interactive experience by detecting emotional responses based off biometrics. This is also designed to work with virtual reality games, and that is the second controller patent we have seen for VR recently. Last week, there was a patent that showed finger tracking with new controllers similar to something like the Oculus controllers. This would be a major improvement over the current outdated Move controllers that was made for the PlayStation 3 and then later implemented for VR for the PlayStation 4. So I am hoping that one turns out being a thing, but I can't really say I'm too excited for a heart monitor, but it could turn out being really cool. I mean, I'm not sure how it'll be implemented exactly, but maybe it does offer more immersive experiences, so maybe it could end up being a pretty interesting thing if it eventually surfaces. Now the last thing I want to talk about is Activision, because they are not messing around with these leakers, as they have filed a subpoena against a Reddit leaker that leaked an image of the rumored upcoming Call of Duty Battle Royale mode named Warzone. Now this is actually very similar to how the Pokemon Company dealt with the Pokemon Sword and Shield leaks, and they searched out the leaker and eventually publicly shamed the website involved with that leak. It does make me wonder if Activision followed suit with Nintendo here and wants to crack down in these type of leaks as well. People leaking information does need to keep this in mind, that certain companies are not going to be okay with these type of leaks, and by leaking information, you are putting yourself at risk. This could also deter future leaks from happening, as insiders will think twice about what they reveal. I'm also curious to see if other companies and publishers does the same thing going forward. I mean, we're starting to see it now. We've seen Nintendo do it, and now Activision does it. I'm curious to see if other publishers follow suit and does the same thing going forward. Nonetheless, it will be interesting to see what happens next, as I'm sure Activision has the resources to find out who was behind this leak. But hey, it does look like this Battle Royale mode is true at the very least. In that case, Video Game Chronicles, the website, is saying that based off their resources, it will be available sometime in March. So that might be something to look forward to. Anyways though, that's it for this video, but if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Peace out.